So today I wanted to respond to several questions that came forward with respects to an incident that happened on Monday, October 18th. We received a lot of inquiries, and it's an opportunity for me to speak to you publicly about this. Just before 7 a.m. on October 18th, the Kelowna RCMP was called to a residence at the 600 block of Becher Road in Kelowna, BC. When investigators arrived on scene, they located the body of a deceased man. Police have confirmed that the man was the victim of a homicide, and a woman was arrested on scene in connection with this investigation. On October 19th, the suspect, a 54-year-old woman from Kelowna, was released without charge. The woman was subsequently apprehended under the Mental Health Act, and this was an isolated incident. We are not looking for any additional suspects in this, and the victim nor the suspect were known to the police prior to this incident. Our thoughts are with the victim, their families, and our community, and all of those who are impacted right now. This week, my police investigators with the Kelowna RCMP have worked around the clock, and I thank them for their truly dedicated efforts to advance this case before the courts. They prepared a detailed package for charge assessment with the evidence before them, which was presented to the BC Prosecution Service and for charge approval. In BC, police recommend charges to BC Prosecution Services, and while BC's Prosecution Service must approve the charges have not been proved to date. I'll open this up to questions now.
So did you say they were not known to police?
Correct. The individuals were not known to police prior to this incident.
Can you tell us if the people involved were renters of the home or the homeowners?
I won't speak to their status at the home, but they did live in a single-family home on the 600 block of Becher Road.
Both of them lived there?
Correct.
Are you able to describe the relationship between the victim and the accused?
Yeah, this is a matter of intimate partner violence.
Why was the woman released and then brought back in that second time?
Mm-hmm. So the individual was only arrested one time under the Criminal Code of Canada for murder and brought before the courts. They were then released to the community and apprehended at a later time under the Mental Health Act, taken to Kelowna General Hospital.
Are you able to explain that Mental Health Act apprehension, the circumstances around there? Was there some incident?
So I won't be speaking about the individual's health status at this point, purely the actions of the police in this case, but what I can tell you is that let's speak more globally, not about this matter per se, but other matters where we deal with individuals in the community who have complex issues as it relates to either mental health or social issues. Sometimes it's substance abuse. We might be talking about something as simple as a petty crime like a disturbance, more significant event like property crime, all the way up to that of a homicide. We have to work within the systems that we have here in BC. Those systems include the Mental Health Act, the Criminal Code, and other policies and directives. And in all of these cases, I believe that we are approaching a precipice in our community's safety and in the confidence of our criminal justice system, as these concurrent systems and their policies are breeding these frustrations. I hear from all of you, many of you in the community this week and in weeks leading up to this as we address property crime and other important issues about these concerns. And it's the job of the police to ensure public safety. It is the job of the police to ensure safety in our communities. And when my officers are responding to these calls for service, I have grave concerns about the limitations of our systems and the policies and directives in which we must operate within. So often it is these systems that we are caught between, and the police are left between the healthcare system, which is burdened by the constraints that it has, and the justice system, where there are a lot of restrictions and increasingly closed doors of remand centers that are full, and policies and directives that I believe are important in modernizing our justice system, but leaving individuals at large in our community. And as police officers, this is a very frustrating situation to be in as we look at the two systems that we must operate between and increasingly deal with people at large in our society who have complex and concurrent mental health or criminal matters that are affecting the way that we can keep our community safe and the sense of safety in our communities for all people. I think if we talk about the incarceration of complex social issues, it's not the answer. And in the absence of a healthcare facility or an incarceration facility, a remand center, police are left in this catch and release cycle where we are dealing with people in the society And we do not have the systems before us to address these matters.
Could you expand on that as far as solutions go from your perspective, being on the front lines and seeing these issues? What are some steps that can be taken, whether it's legislation or other solutions?
Mm-hmm. So we recently heard from the Attorney General's office as he spoke about addressing property crime in the province and what the province is doing with respects to mental health. That was, I think, a really important discussion, and it was really important to hear from the Attorney General's office on this. As myself, as your police chief in this community, I'm invested heavily in our community safety plan that the City of Kelowna has designed, which brings our systems together, the health system, the justice system, as well as social development and other systems in our community to address these complex issues. Looking at outcomes that allow us to achieve these objectives in our community while people are being released back into the community after repeated offenses in our case.
Is the female suspect still at KGH or out in the community?
I can't speak to her current medical status. However, the suspect is not bound by any conditions right now through the courts and is free and able to be present in our society.
How were the police informed that there was an incident at that location on Monday morning?
We received a 911 call from that residence.
Was there anyone else living in the home, or was it just the two people?
In the residence where the individuals lived, there was nobody else.
Nobody else living there or nobody else there at the time?
Nobody else in the residence where the two individuals were at the time of the offense.
How concerning is that? You talked a lot about public safety, community safety, police's job to keep the community safe. How concerning is that individual that we're discussing now is not bound by any judicial boundaries?
Conditions is what we would call those. Conditions of release, yeah. So as your police chief, do I believe that it is concerning that somebody is at large in our community, and my police officers are working around the clock right now to bring what we would call a disclosure package to the BC Prosecution Service, knowing that for me as your police chief, that takes my investigators, a full team of investigators, putting everything else aside, up to 3 weeks to complete in a case like this. I find that concerning, absolutely, because there's no conditions imposed on this individual. And yet, I understand that my partners at the BC Prosecution Service are acting within the directives of their policies and that they are within their systems addressing the situation that they have before them. And so as we look at that, I know that it takes my officers a long time to complete a case like this. The complexities of police work is significant. They take the evidence that is collected at scene and the evidence that they collect from the people that they interview, as well as the forensic aspects of this file and the physical evidence that they are able to obtain, and they have to process all of that information, build it into a disclosure package, and have that disclosed to the courts through several vetting procedures. That takes a long time. That is a lot of work. That is taking longer and longer due to the complexities of our justice system and how increasingly policies and inquiries have changed the way that we do our work. And so these very skilled, extremely competent investigators are then left working around the clock for up to 3 weeks to try and get this matter before BC Prosecution Service in its full disclosure. And for lay people, that means that they're waiting for those matters to be before the courts and then for those conditions to be imposed and charges to be approved.
Should the public be concerned about safety, having, well, whether it's mental health is involved, but should the public be concerned that people are back out in the community?
To me, I have full confidence in my officers to work with our partner agencies to ensure safety plans are in place. However, there is always a concern to me when we are not able to incarcerate somebody for murder.
Just to clarify, this investigation is before the BC Prosecution Service right now, awaiting charge approval?
This matter has been brought to the BC Prosecution Service, who has not approved charges at this point and are waiting for a full disclosure package from my investigators.
So the Crown is waiting for the full disclosure package before making a determination whether to lay charges or not?
Correct. So in BC, the police bring a evidence package to the prosecution service within the first 24 hours of arresting somebody, and that prosecution service will make, at that point, the attorney or the Crown Counsel at that point will make a determination whether or not they will lay a charge. They have 24 hours in which to bring that matter to the courts for either bail and release or charge approval, at which point my investigators go back to their desks or to the community if there's a further investigation to be done, and collect that information, prepare that disclosure package, and then they bring that full case to court.
So is the disclosure package just more evidence to potentially incarcerate that person?
Absolutely. It's the fulsome package, including in-depth transcriptions of statements, the processing of forensic evidence, the collection of information from pathology or other important factors. It could be a variety of different things depending on the case.
So charges could still be approved here?
Absolutely, and I believe they will be in this case.
And so, again, just for clarity, I'm sorry, the initial disclosure that was given to the BC Prosecution Service, the Crown chose not to lay charges based on that in anticipation of the full disclosure package.
Correct, and I would encourage that any questions with respect to laying charges be directed to the BC Prosecution Service, who could answer the questions. And I understand that this is a case that stems from public interest. However, the BC Prosecution Service would be in the best place to answer questions about why and when they choose to lay charges.
Is it unusual when you have a homicide or 4 days later for the suspect not to have a charge laid in a case like this?
So in 22 years of policing, I believe that this matter has been growing and evolving over 22 years. That's really a question for our community and a question for our public and our policymakers. Is this unusual? I believe that we are at a point in our community and in our society where we are at a precipice. We have had a lot of decisions that have affected why our BC Prosecution Service may come to their decision. As your police chief, I can only speak to the aspects that we have control over. And so I think with respects to charges being approved, that would absolutely need to be directed to BC Prosecution Service and their policies. They have very clear policies and directives and manuals on how they approve charges.
It sounds like you're frustrated with kind of the overarching situation here. Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure that my feelings of frustration are the primary focus today. I think what's important for me as a police chief is to communicate really clearly with the public about what our strategies are going forward, what it is our current situation is, and how we keep our community safe. And for me, full and transparent information about this case. I've been asked a lot of questions this week. Why are charges not laid in this case? And where are the police at with this investigation? Which is why I'm responding to those questions today.
Are you able to tell us what the charge was that you were recommending that was not approved?
Murder.
And when?
Second degree or?
First.
First degree.
And when do you expect to have that full disclosure package completed?